The afternoon sun beat down on forward operating base Vigilant with relentless intensity, turning the dusty compound into an oven. Staff Sergeant Maya Reeves barely noticed. She sat cross-legged on a worn wooden bench inside the armory tent. Her world narrowed to the disassembled components of her M110 semi-automatic sniper system, spread before her on a clean cloth. 8 years in the United States Army had taught her many things, but perhaps the most important was this: trust your weapon like you trust yourself, and maintain it the same way. Her hands moved with the practiced precision of a surgeon, running a bore brush through the barrel in smooth, methodical strokes. The familiar smell of gun oil and solvent filled her nostrils, a scent that had become oddly comforting over the years. Each piece of the rifle received her undivided attention. The bolt carrier group gleamed under her careful inspection. The trigger assembly was checked for any sign of wear. The scope mounts were tested for the slightest give. "Sergeant Reeves, you've been in here for 3 hours," a voice called from the tent entrance. Private First Class Tommy Chen leaned against the frame, grinning. "That rifle's cleaner than the day it left the factory." Maya didn't look up. "Clean isn't good enough, Chen. Perfect is the standard." "Yes, Staff Sergeant." He knew better than to argue. Everyone in Bravo Company knew Maya's reputation. 15 confirmed kills in her previous deployment, though no one knew exactly where. She didn't talk about it. Outside the tent, the normal sounds of base life continued. Soldiers calling to each other, the rumble of Humvees rolling past, the distant thump of a basketball hitting backboard at the makeshift court. Forward operating base Vigilant was a small installation, housing about 200 troops on a NATO peacekeeping rotation in Eastern Europe. For the past 6 weeks, their mission had been routine, patrols, community engagement, watching a border that had been quiet for months. Too quiet, Maya sometimes thought, but she kept that to herself. She was reassembling the firing pin assembly when the first whispers started filtering through the tent. "Did you hear? General's coming." "What general?" "3-star Holt, I think, flying in from Stuttgart." Maya's hands paused for just a fraction of a second, then continued their work. Generals visited all the time. Surprise inspections, morale checks, photo opportunities for the folks back home. This one would be no different. She'd stand at attention, answer, "Yes, sir," if asked a direct question, then get back to her work. The commotion outside grew louder. Boots pounded on gravel. Somewhere, a sergeant major was barking orders about uniforms and formation. Maya heard Captain Brooks, her company commander, shouting for squad leaders. "All personnel to the yard in 5 minutes. Full uniform, move." Maya sighed, quickly finishing the rifle reassembly. She'd have to complete her maintenance check later. She locked the M110 in her designated rack, secured the armory, and jogged toward the assembly area. 73 soldiers of Bravo Company stood in formation under the brutal sun, arranged in neat rows. Maya took her place among the other NCOs, standing at parade rest, eyes forward. Sweat trickled down her back beneath her combat uniform. The Black Hawk appeared first as a distant speck, then grew larger, its rotors creating a thunderous beat that drowned out all other sound. It settled onto the landing pad in a cloud of dust and diesel exhaust. The moment the wheels touched down, the rotors began to slow. General Marcus Holt stepped out first, a lean man in his late 50s with steel-gray hair and the bearing of someone who'd spent more time in combat zones than behind a desk. 3 rows of ribbons adorned his chest, including a silver star and 2 bronze stars with V devices for valor. His eyes were sharp, constantly scanning, taking in every detail. Behind him came his aide, a nervous-looking major, and 2 soldiers from his security detail. "Company, attention," Captain Brooks's voice cracked like a whip. Maya snapped to attention with everyone else, her eyes fixed on a point in the middle distance. The general began his walkthrough, moving down the first row of soldiers. She could hear him asking questions, his voice low and professional. Where you from, soldier? How long you been in theater? Your equipment in good order? Standard questions, standard inspection. Maya relaxed fractionally. The general moved to the second row, then started down the third, Maya's row. She could feel him approaching, hear his boots on the gravel. He stopped at the soldier next to her, asked about family back home, moved on. Then he was in front of her. Maya stared straight ahead, jaw set, breathing controlled. She could see him in her peripheral vision, his eyes scanning her uniform from boots to cover. Professional assessment. Nothing unusual. But then his gaze stopped, locked onto something. Her right sleeve. Maya's heart rate kicked up a notch. There, just below her Bravo Company patch, was a small, subdued badge most soldiers would never notice. Black and gray, no larger than a quarter, depicting a mountain peak with a crosshair. No words, no explanation. The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats, 4, 5. When General Holt spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, but Maya heard the weight behind every word. Task Force Sentinel. It wasn't a question. Maya's world tilted. That name, that badge, was from another life. A classified life she'd left behind 2 years ago when she requested transfer to conventional forces, when she decided she couldn't live in the shadows anymore. The general stepped closer, his voice dropping even lower. Staff Sergeant, I need to speak with you, privately, right now. Captain Brooks appeared at the general's shoulder, confused. Sir, is there a problem? No problem, Captain. General Holt's eyes never left Maya's face. But I'm requisitioning your NCO for a briefing, effective immediately. Maya's mind raced. This wasn't standard. This wasn't protocol. Generals didn't pull staff sergeants out of formation for casual chats. Something was very wrong. Or very urgent. Yes, sir, she heard herself say. As they walked toward the command building, Maya caught the stares of her fellow soldiers, confusion, curiosity, maybe a hint of concern. Private Chen's eyes were wide with questions she couldn't answer. General Holt held the door to a secure briefing room, waiting for her to enter. As Maya stepped across the threshold, she caught sight of her reflection in the window glass. The badge on her sleeve seemed to glow in the afternoon light. She'd spent 2 years trying to forget what that badge meant, what she'd done to earn it, what she'd lost because of it. Apparently, the past wasn't finished with her yet. The door closed with a hollow click, sealing her inside with a 3-star general, and whatever crisis had brought him to this remote base. Maya Reeves stood at attention and waited for her world to change. Again, General Marcus Holt didn't sit. He stood with his back to the door, arms crossed, studying Maya with an intensity that made her feel like she was back in selection, being evaluated, measured, judged. The briefing room was sparse. A metal table, 4 chairs, a secured computer terminal in the corner, and walls lined with tactical maps of Eastern Europe. A single overhead light buzzed softly. Through the reinforced window, Maya could see the rest of Bravo Company being dismissed from formation, soldiers dispersing back to their duties. Normal life, the life she'd chosen. At ease, Staff Sergeant, Holt said finally, and closed the blinds. Maya pulled the cord, cutting off the outside world. When she turned back, the general was still staring at that badge on her sleeve. Kandahar 2023, he said quietly. I was running a joint task force out of Camp Phoenix. We had a situation, high-value target, compound in the mountains, civilians everywhere. Too delicate for conventional forces, too urgent for CIA to handle alone. I called in Sentinel. Maya's breath caught. She knew this story. She'd lived it. 2 operators came, Holt continued. Established overwatch on a ridgeline 1,500 meters out, held position for 72 hours in 110-degree heat. When the target finally appeared, the shot was impossible, crosswind, heat mirage, moving vehicle. But your spotter called it perfect. His eyes met hers. And you made it. Sir. Staff Sergeant Maya Reeves, graduated top of your class from sniper school at Fort Benning, selected for Task Force Sentinel after demonstrating exceptional aptitude in counterterrorism operations. 43 confirmed missions across 4 theaters, 0 civilian casualties. He paused. Until Damascus. Maya's hands clenched at her sides. Damascus. The word alone was enough to bring it all back. The smell of cordite, the sound of David's last breath, the weight of failure that had crushed her for months afterward. That wasn't in my file, sir. No, it wasn't. Sentinel buries its failures deep. Holt moved to the table, pulling a tablet from his briefcase. But I make it my business to know the soldiers I work with. David Chen was your spotter, best in the program, they said. You two were deployed to Syria to eliminate a chemical weapons coordinator. The mission went sideways. Ambush. Chen was killed covering your extraction. He died because I missed the secondary lookout, Maya said, her voice flat, controlled. Because I was so focused on the primary target that I didn't clear the building properly. That's why I left Sentinel, sir. That's why I requested transfer to conventional forces. You left because you blamed yourself for a tactical situation that had a dozen variables beyond your control. I left because I couldn't be trusted anymore. General Holt set the tablet on the table, tapped the screen. A satellite image appeared, grainy but clear enough. Mountains, a valley, structures built into the rock face. Recognize this region? He asked. Maya leaned forward, her training taking over despite herself. Eastern border, 40, maybe 50 clicks from our position. Former Soviet installation, abandoned since the 90s. Not abandoned anymore. Holt swiped to the next image. Heat signatures, vehicles, armed personnel. As of 72 hours ago, this location became active. Our intelligence suggests it's being used as a waypoint for a high-value transfer. What kind of transfer? Holt's expression darkened. Tactical nuclear components. Not a full weapon, we'd already have boots on the ground if it were. But the parts necessary to construct a dirty bomb capable of rendering a major city uninhabitable for decades. Maya's mind raced. Who's moving them? Viktor Lazarev, former Russian GRU, now freelance, sells to the highest bidder terror networks, rogue states, anyone with enough money and ambition. Another swipe. A man's face appeared, 50s, hard eyes, military bearing. He's ghost-like, moves through our intelligence networks like smoke, but we finally have a location, a timeline, and a window. Send in special forces, Delta, SEAL Team 6. This is exactly what they train for. Nearest team is 9 hours out and Lazarev's convoy moves in 6. By the time they arrive, those components will be in the wind. Holt leaned on the table, his voice dropping. I need someone on the ground now. Someone who can establish overwatch, confirm the package, and if necessary, eliminate the threat before it disappears. Sir, I'm conventional infantry now. I haven't run a Sentinel op in 2 years. You think that badge on your sleeve comes off just because you changed units? Holt's voice sharpened. Sentinel doesn't leave you, Reeves. It's in your blood, in your training, in every shot you've ever taken. He straightened. I've reviewed your current company's records. You still qualify expert marksman every cycle. You still volunteer for Overwatch on every patrol. You still maintain your rifle like it's the only thing between you and death. That's discipline, not. That's who you are. Holt picked up the tablet, thrust it toward her. Look at this image again. Really look at it. Maya studied the satellite photo. The compound, the valley, the approaches. Even now her mind was calculating. Wind patterns based on topography, potential hide sites, extraction routes, fields of fire. She was doing exactly what Holt said she would. There's a village 12 kilometers from that installation, Holt continued quietly. Population 4,000, mostly farmers. There's a school, a clinic, families. If those components detonate even by accident during transport, everyone in that valley dies. And if Lazarev successfully delivers them to his buyer, A cell with ties to 3 separate terror networks. The death toll could be in the hundreds of thousands. Maya closed her eyes. She could hear David's voice in her head, something he'd told her during their first mission together. We don't take these shots because we want to. We take them because no one else can. I can't promise I'm the same operator I was, she said. I don't need the same operator. I need the one standing in front of me right now. The one who's had 2 years to think about what went wrong. The one who's learned from it. And if I fail again, then a lot of people die and you'll have to live with that. Holt's eyes softened slightly. But if you don't try, they die anyway. At least this way they have a chance. Maya thought about Bravo Company. Good soldiers, well-trained but not prepared for this kind of operation. She thought about the village in the valley, people who had no idea what kind of death was rolling toward them. She thought about David and the promise she'd made at his memorial. Never again. But some promises were meant to be broken, if it meant saving lives. What's the timeline? She asked. General Holt allowed himself the smallest smile. You insert at 2200 hours. I'm giving you 12 hours to prepare, select your support team, brief them on what they need to know, gear up. Support team, sir, Sentinel operates in pairs. You're not technically Sentinel anymore, remember. There was almost warmth in his voice now. Besides, you'll need a spotter and a communications specialist. Choose from your company, people you trust. Maya nodded slowly, the weight of the mission settling onto her shoulders like an old, familiar coat. Heavy, but it fit. I'll need full access to long-range reconnaissance gear, updated intelligence packets, and authorization to brief my team on classified protocols. Already arranged. My aide will have everything ready within the hour. Holt extended his hand. Welcome back, Staff Sergeant Reeves. Maya shook his hand, feeling the calluses of a man who'd spent his life in the field, not just behind a desk. As she turned to leave, Holt called out one more time. Maya, it was the first time he'd used her first name. David Chen's death wasn't your fault, but if you need to believe it was to make this mission work, use it. Let it drive you, just don't let it break you. Maya paused at the door, her hand on the handle. It already broke me once, sir. I won't let it happen again. She stepped out into the harsh sunlight, squinting against the brightness. Around her, the base continued its normal operations, soldiers joking, equipment being maintained, the rhythm of military life rolling on. But for Maya Reeves, normal had just ended. She had 12 hours to become someone she'd sworn never to be again. The clock was already ticking. Maya stood outside the armory tent, watching the sun descend toward the horizon. 12 hours. In 12 hours, she'd be inserted into hostile territory to stop a nuclear threat. But first, she had to become someone she'd buried 2 years ago. Someone who could kill without hesitation. She pushed through the tent flap. Her M110 still sat in its rack, but now she needed more. She pulled an equipment authorization form from her pocket, signed by General Holt himself, and handed it to the armorer, a grizzled sergeant named Williams. Holy hell, Williams muttered, reading the list. Night vision, thermal optics, suppressed sidearm, 400 rounds of match grade 7.62. Staff Sergeant, you planning on starting a war? Planning on ending one, Maya replied. As Williams gathered the equipment, Maya's hands trembled slightly. She clenched them into fists. Not now, not when it mattered. But the memories came anyway, uninvited and relentless. Kandahar 18 months ago. The ridgeline overlooking the valley. David beside her, his eye pressed to the spotting scope, calling wind and distance in that calm voice of his. 800 meters. Wind 3.5 left to right. Targets moving toward the vehicle. You've got maybe 10 seconds. I see him. Wait for the secondary lookout to clear the doorway. He's. Her shot, perfect. The target dropped, mission accomplished. Then the explosion from behind them, the ambush they'd missed. David pushing her toward cover, taking the rounds meant for her, his blood on her hands, his last words, complete the mission. Maya's eyes snapped open. She realized she'd been gripping the edge of the equipment table hard enough to turn her knuckles white. "You okay, Staff Sergeant?" Williams asked, concern creasing his weathered face. "Fine, I need this gear ready in 2 hours." "You got it." Maya left the armory and headed toward the barracks. She needed a team, 2 soldiers she could trust with her life. The choice was easier than she expected. She found Corporal Jake Morrison in the company gym, running through pull-ups with the determination of someone trying to prove something. 23 years old, Oklahoma accent, and a natural talent for fieldcraft that reminded Maya of herself at that age. He'd grown up hunting with his father, could read terrain like a book, and never complained. "Morrison, a word." He dropped from the bar, breathing hard. "Staff Sergeant." Maya led him outside, away from listening ears. "I'm putting together a team for a time-sensitive operation. It's classified, it's dangerous, and I can't tell you the details until you volunteer. But I need someone I can trust to watch my back. You interested?" Morrison's eyes widened. He didn't hesitate. "Yes, Staff Sergeant, whatever you need." "Good, gear up, full combat load. We leave at 2200. Next was Private First Class Aisha Okonkwo. Maya found her in the communications center, running diagnostics on the radio equipment. Nigerian immigrant, brilliant with technology, and possessing a calm under pressure that defied her 21 years. "Okonkwo, walk with me." Outside, Maya made the same offer. Aisha's response was different. She studied Maya carefully, her intelligent eyes searching. "This has something to do with that badge on your sleeve, doesn't it? The one nobody talks about." Maya was impressed. "Maybe. My mother didn't bring me to America so I could play it safe, Staff Sergeant. I'm in." 2 hours later, Maya was briefing them in a secured room. She spread maps across the table, the valley, the installation, the insertion point. "We establish overwatch here," she pointed to a ridge. "Observe and report. If necessary, we interdict questions." Morrison leaned forward. "Interdict means?" "It means if the target tries to move those components, I stop them. Permanently." The weight of that statement hung in the air. Okonkwo absorbed it with a nod. Morrison swallowed hard but didn't back down. "We've got your 6, Staff Sergeant." Maya felt something shift in her chest. The beginnings of trust, maybe even hope. The door burst open. Captain Brooks stood there, his face flushed with anger. "My office now." Maya followed him, leaving her team behind. Brooks closed the door and whirled on her. "Want to tell me what the hell is going on? A 3-star general shows up, pulls you from my company, and suddenly you're requisitioning enough firepower for a small war and taking my soldiers with you." "It's classified, sir." "I don't care if it's cosmic top secret. These are my people, my responsibility." "Not anymore." Maya kept her voice level. "General Holt has operational authority. I have my orders." Brooks stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Maya, I've known you for 6 months. You're one of the best NCOs I've ever worked with, but you've also got ghosts. I've seen you wake up at night, seen the way you stare at that rifle like it's the only real thing in your world." His expression softened. "Whatever they're asking you to do, whatever that badge on your sleeve means, are you sure you're ready?" For a moment, Maya wanted to tell him everything. About Sentinel, about David, about the crushing weight of failure that had driven her to request the transfer to his conventional unit. But she wouldn't. "I have to be ready, sir. People are counting on it." Brooks studied her face, then sighed. "Bring them back alive, Maya. Morrison's got a sister in college. Okonkwo sends half her pay home to her family. They're good kids." "I know, that's why I chose them." At 21:45 hours, Maya stood on the tarmac with Morrison and Okonkwo. Both were loaded down with gear, their faces a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. The Black Hawk sat waiting, rotors beginning their warm-up cycle. Morrison shifted his rifle. "Staff Sergeant, can I ask you something?" "Make it quick." "That badge on your sleeve, what does it mean?" Maya looked at the subdued patch, the mountain peak, the crosshair, the symbol of a life she'd tried to leave behind. "It means I used to be good at something terrible," she said quietly. "And tonight, I need to be good at it again." The crew chief waved them forward. As they approached the helicopter, Maya felt the familiar pre-mission adrenaline kicking in. Her hands were steady now, her mind clear. The ghosts were still there, David's voice, his final moments, but she'd learned to carry them. Okonkwo touched her arm as they reached the aircraft. "We trust you, Staff Sergeant, whatever happens out there." Maya nodded, unable to speak past the sudden tightness in her throat. They climbed aboard. The rotors spun faster, the engine's whine rising to a roar. Through the open door, Maya saw Captain Brooks standing at the edge of the tarmac, watching them leave. She raised her hand in a brief salute. He returned it. Then the Black Hawk lifted off, banking hard toward the east, carrying them into the darkness. Below, the lights of forward operating base Vigilant grew smaller, a constellation of safety and normalcy that was rapidly disappearing behind them. Morrison leaned close to be heard over the engine noise. "Where are we going?" Maya checked her rifle one final time, chambered around, engaged the safety. "To finish something I started a long time ago," she said. "And this time I'm bringing everyone home." The helicopter flew on into the night, 3 soldiers and a ghost, racing toward a valley where death waited in the darkness. The mission had begun. The Black Hawk dropped them 3 kilometers from the target zone, hovering just long enough for the team to fast-rope into a clearing surrounded by dense pine forest. The moment Maya's boots hit the ground, the helicopter was gone, its rotor wash fading into the night. Silence descended like a blanket. "Form up," Maya whispered. "Morrison, take point. Okonkwo middle, I'll bring up rear. Night vision on, comms check." They moved through the forest like shadows, Maya's training flooding back with each step. Read the terrain. Avoid skylining. Move with the wind, not against it. Every lesson from Sentinel, every hard-earned skill activated in her muscle memory. Morrison proved his worth immediately, navigating the treacherous mountain terrain with the instinct of someone raised in the wilderness. Okonkwo kept pace without complaint, her communication rig secured tightly to her back. After 2 hours of hard climbing, they reached their objective, a rocky outcrop overlooking the valley. Below, perhaps 800 meters distant, sat the abandoned Soviet installation, concrete bunkers built into the mountainside, a crumbling vehicle depot, and the dark mouth of a tunnel entrance. "This is it," Maya said. "We set up here." They worked in practice silence, establishing their observation post. Maya positioned herself behind a natural rock formation that provided both cover and an unobstructed view of the target. Morrison set up their backup position 15 meters to the left. Okonkwo created a small sheltered area where she could monitor communications without being exposed. Maya assembled her rifle, attached the thermal scope, and settled into position. Through the optic, the world became shades of green and white, heat signatures standing out against the cold mountain night. "Nothing moving down there," she reported quietly. "Copy that," Okonkwo replied, already scanning radio frequencies. The first night was the hardest. The temperature dropped to near freezing. They couldn't risk a fire, couldn't move around to stay warm. Morrison shivered despite his cold weather gear until Maya taught him an old sniper trick: controlled breathing and muscle tension exercises to generate internal heat. "You're doing good," she told him during a whispered conversation at 300 hours. "Most soldiers can't handle the waiting. They need action." "This is action," Morrison replied, his Oklahoma drawl barely audible. "Just a different kind." Dawn came slowly, painting the valley in shades of gold and purple. Maya swept her scope across the installation methodically. No movement, no vehicles, nothing to suggest anyone had been there in decades. Maybe the intel was wrong, Morrison suggested. Intel is never wrong, Maya said, just early or late. She taught them patience over the next 2 days, how to stay alert during endless hours of observation, how to rotate positions without being seen, how to eat, drink, and handle bodily functions while maintaining surveillance, the unglamorous reality of reconnaissance work. Okonkwo absorbed everything like a sponge. Is this what you did before, in that other unit? Maya was quiet for a moment. Something like this, but usually alone with just a spotter. You two are doing better than most trained operators. Because we had a good teacher, Okonkwo said simply. By the 3rd day, Maya's eyes felt gritty from lack of sleep and constant observation. They'd established a rotation, 4 hours on, 2 hours rest, but she found herself unable to truly sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw David's face. Then, as darkness fell on the 3rd night, everything changed. Movement, Morrison hissed. Vehicle lights coming up the access road. Maya's scope snapped to the road. Headlights cut through the darkness, 1 vehicle, then 2, then 4 more behind them. A convoy. Okonkwo, start recording. Morrison, count vehicles and personnel. 6 vehicles total, Morrison reported. SUVs military grade I'm seeing. 12 no, 15 armed guards. Maya's scope swept over the convoy as it pulled to a stop near the tunnel entrance. Armed men emerged, establishing a perimeter. Professional, disciplined, not common criminals. Then the center vehicle's door opened. Through her thermal scope, Maya saw him, a man in his 50s, moving with military bearing. Even at this distance, she could see the authority in his posture, the way the guards deferred to him. Target identified, she whispered, switching to her tablet to compare with the intelligence photos. Viktor Lazarov, positive ID. Her finger moved to the trigger guard. Not yet, observe, confirm, then act. More men emerged from the vehicles, unloading equipment. Crates, heavy ones based on how many hands it took to move them. Maya's heart rate picked up. Those had to be the components. She was calculating the shot, wind speed, distance, drop, when something made her pause. A figure emerged from the 3rd vehicle, wearing different clothing than the others. Not tactical gear, a contractor's vest, American-style boots. Maya zoomed in, her breath catching. The man was Caucasian, mid-30s, with the build of former military. And stamped clearly on his vest, even at this distance she could see it, an American contractor logo. No, she breathed. What is it? Morrison asked. There's an American down there. Okonkwo's voice was tight. Are you sure? Positive. Maya watched the American move among the Russians, seemingly comfortable, part of the team. A traitor, a mercenary, either way he was with Lazarov. Her radio crackled softly, General Holt's voice encrypted and distant. Sentinel-1 report. Maya keyed her mic. Target confirmed. Lazarov is on site with armed security, approximately 15 hostiles, but sir, we have a complication. Define complication. There's an American contractor with the target, appears to be working with Lazarov's organization. Static, then, copy that, stand by for updated row. Rules of engagement. Maya's stomach tightened, she knew what was coming. 2 minutes later, Holt's voice returned, flat and emotionless. Sentinel-1, your mission parameters remain unchanged. You are authorized to engage any and all threats to prevent those components from leaving the area of operations. No exceptions. Morrison and Okonkwo both looked at Maya, understanding dawning on their faces. Sir, Maya said carefully, you're asking me to potentially engage an American citizen. I'm asking you to complete your mission. That American made his choice when he allied himself with a nuclear arms dealer. Your job is to make sure those components don't reach their destination, by any means necessary. The radio went silent. Maya stared through her scope at the American. He was laughing at something one of the Russians said, completely unaware that a rifle was trained on him from the darkness. She'd killed before, enemy combatants, terrorists, people who'd made themselves targets through their actions, but never an American, never someone who might be a citizen, someone who might have family waiting for them back home. Staff Sergeant, Morrison's voice was barely a whisper. What do we do? Maya's finger rested on the trigger guard. In the valley below, Lazarev's team was moving the crates toward the tunnel entrance. Time was running out. She thought of David, of the choice that had gotten him killed, hesitation at the wrong moment, certainty at the wrong time. We wait, she said finally. We observe. We confirm what's in those crates, and if we have to take the shot. She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. In the valley below, the American contractor moved closer to Lazarev, and Maya's crosshairs followed him like a promise. Or a curse. For 6 hours they watched. Lazarev's men worked methodically, moving crates from the vehicles into the tunnel system. Maya documented everything through her scope, faces, weapons, procedures. The American contractor seemed to be coordinating the operation, speaking Russian fluently, checking manifests on a tablet. Whatever he is, he's deep in this, Okonkwo whispered. Morrison shifted position beside Maya, trying to get a better angle with the backup spotting scope. His boots scraped against loose shale. The sound was barely audible, a whisper of stone on stone. But in the mountain silence, it might as well have been a gunshot. Below, one of Lazarev's guards froze. His head snapped up toward their position, rifle already rising. He shouted in Russian, "T-A-M, N-A-K-A-L-M, yeah." "Contact," Maya hissed. Morrison, Okonkwo, fall back to secondary position, move. The valley erupted in muzzle flashes. Rounds cracked past Maya's head, striking the rocks around her with sharp reports. She fired twice, controlled pairs, dropping the guard who'd spotted them, but there were too many. "Suppressing fire," she shouted, her rifle barking steadily as Morrison and Okonkwo scrambled backward toward cover. Below, Lazarev was already moving, his bodyguards forming a protective shield around him as they sprinted toward the lead vehicle. The American contractor was with him, moving with trained efficiency. Maya's scope found Lazarev's back. 800 meters, downhill shot, wind negligible. She made harder shots in worse conditions. Her breathing steadied, finger on the trigger. The crosshairs settled on Lazarev's center mass. Then the American contractor stepped directly behind Lazarev, matching his stride perfectly. A human shield. Through the scope, Maya saw his face clearly for the first time. Young, maybe 35, scared eyes but determined. And in that split second, as their gazes somehow met across the impossible distance, she saw something else. Recognition, as if he knew she was there, as if he'd been expecting this. "Take the shot," Morrison yelled, his voice nearly drowned by incoming fire. The math was simple. One bullet, through the American's shoulder, maybe his torso, into Lazarev's chest. Mission accomplished. Thousands of lives saved. But Maya's finger wouldn't move. David's voice in her memory. The second you forget these are people, you become something else, something that can't come back. "Staff Sergeant," Morrison again, desperate now. Lazarev reached his vehicle. The American contractor pulled him inside, using his own body as a barrier. The door slammed. Tires spun on gravel. Maya's shot window closed. "Damn it," she pivoted, firing at the pursuing guards instead. 3 fell. 4. But the convoy was accelerating toward the tunnel entrance, disappearing into the mountain's darkness. "Gone." "Fall back," Maya ordered, fighting retreat to the tree line. They moved in controlled bounds, one person firing while the others repositioned. Morrison was keeping it together, his shots disciplined despite the chaos. But there were at least a dozen hostiles, and they were advancing. A round struck near Okonkwo's position. She screamed. "Okonkwo's hit," Morrison shouted. Maya's heart stopped. She sprinted toward the communications specialist, Morrison laying down covering fire that sounded like thunder in the confined space. Okonkwo was on her side, blood soaking through her pants just above the knee. "I'm okay," Okonkwo gasped, her face pale. "I can move." "Like hell you can." Maya pulled a tourniquet from her med kit, wrapping it tight around Okonkwo's thigh. The younger woman bit back another scream. Rounds continued to crack overhead. They were pinned down, trapped on the mountainside with wounded and enemies closing in. Maya keyed her radio. "Viper 6, this is Sentinel-1. We are compromised, troops in contact. I have one wounded. Request immediate QRF and air support. Danger close." General Holt's voice came back, tense but controlled. "Sentinel-1, QRF is spinning up. ETA 30 minutes. Can you hold?" Maya looked at their situation. 60 rounds left between her and Morrison. Okonkwo immobile. Hostiles advancing from multiple angles. 30 minutes might as well be 30 hours. "We'll hold," she said, because there was no other answer. She turned to Morrison. "Listen to me, Corporal. We're going to make them pay for every meter. Controlled fire. Make every round count. Can you do that?" Morrison's face was streaked with dirt and sweat, but his eyes were steady. "Yes, Staff Sergeant." "Good man." Maya turned to Okonkwo. "Stay low, stay quiet. We're getting you home." What followed was the longest 30 minutes of Maya's life. They fought like cornered wolves, vicious, desperate, precise. Maya's rifle became an extension of her will, each shot a calculated decision. Morrison proved himself worthy of the Sentinel badge she'd never given him, holding the right flank with courage that belied his 23 years. The enemy adapted, using fire and maneuver tactics that spoke of professional training. These weren't mere thugs, they were soldiers. Maya's ammunition counter clicked down. 40 rounds, 30, 20. "Running low," Morrison called out. "Make them count." Then, like salvation itself, she heard it, the distant thump of rotor blades, growing louder, closer. "Gunships inbound," Okonkwo shouted, monitoring the tactical frequency despite her wound. 2 Apache attack helicopters crested the ridgeline, their 30 chain guns opening up with a sound like ripping canvas. The mountainside below exploded in fire and destruction. Lazarev's remaining guards broke and ran, abandoning their assault. A Black Hawk swooped in behind the Apache, flaring hard for a combat landing. The crew chief waved frantically. "Go, go, go." Maya and Morrison grabbed Okonkwo, hauling her toward the helicopter. Her face was white with pain, but she didn't cry out. They threw her aboard, then tumbled in after her as rounds pinged off the helicopter's armored skin. The Black Hawk lifted off, banking hard away from the valley. Through the open door, Maya watched the installation disappear below them. The tunnel entrance where Lazarev had escaped with the components, the bodies of the guards she'd killed, the mission that had fallen apart. She'd failed. As the medic worked on Okonkwo, General Holt's voice came through her headset. "Sentinel-1, report status." Maya closed her eyes, exhaustion and failure crushing down on her. Target escaped into tunnel network. Components location unknown. One friendly wounded, serious but stable. Mission failure, sir. She waited for the reprimand, the anger, the consequences. Instead, Holt said something that made her blood run cold. "The American contractor with Lazarev. His name is Ryan Keller, CIA, deep cover for 6 months, embedded in Lazarev's organization." Maya's eyes snapped open. "What? You didn't shoot an American traitor, Staff Sergeant. You saved one of our most valuable assets in the region." The helicopter flew on through the darkness, carrying them back to base, back to safety. But Maya felt no relief, only the crushing weight of incomplete victory. She'd saved one life. But somewhere in those mountains, nuclear components were moving toward an unknown destination. And the clock was still ticking. The medevac team swarmed Okonkwo the moment the Black Hawk touched down at forward operating base Vigilant. Maya watched them carry her away on a stretcher, the young soldier's face pale but composed, giving a weak thumbs up as she disappeared into the medical facility. "She's going to be okay," Morrison said beside her, his voice hollow with exhaustion. His uniform was torn, his hands still trembling from adrenaline crash. Maya nodded, unable to speak. The weight of command had never felt heavier. "Debrief in 10 minutes, a lieutenant informed them. "General Holt is waiting." The debriefing room felt like a courtroom. General Holt sat at the head of the table, his aide beside him with a laptop displaying tactical imagery. Captain Brooks was there too, his expression unreadable. Maya stood at attention, Morrison beside her, both still in their combat gear, still carrying the dust and blood of the mission. "At ease," Holt said. "Walk me through it." Maya delivered her report with military precision, leaving out nothing. The observation post, the 3-day wait, the convoy's arrival, Morrison's accidental noise, the firefight, and finally the shot she didn't take. When she finished, silence filled the room. "You had Lazarev in your sights," Holt said quietly. "Why didn't you fire?" "The American contractor was in the line of fire, sir. I couldn't guarantee a clean shot without hitting him." "Your orders were to stop those components by any means necessary." "Yes, sir, I understood the orders, but I couldn't," Maya's voice caught. "I couldn't kill an American citizen on a possibility, sir, not without certainty." Captain Brooks spoke up. "General, with respect, Staff Sergeant Reeves made the right call. Rules of engagement are clear about." "I'm not questioning her judgment, Captain," Holt interrupted. He stood, walking to the window overlooking the base. "I'm commending it." Maya blinked, "Sir." Holt turned back to them. "The American contractor, Ryan Keller, has been CIA's most successful deep-cover asset in Eastern Europe for 6 months. He's provided intelligence on 3 major arms deals, prevented 2 terror attacks, and was days away from identifying Lazarev's entire supply network." He paused. "If you'd taken that shot, Staff Sergeant, we'd have lost all of that. You saved his life and preserved years of intelligence work." Morrison let out a breath he'd been holding. Maya felt dizzy. "But sir," she said, "Lazarev escaped. The components are still out there." "They are, which brings us to our next problem." Holt nodded to his aide, who pulled up new intelligence on the screen. Intercepted communications, satellite imagery, electronic signals analysis. "Lazarev knows his operation is compromised now," the aide explained. "He's accelerating his timeline. Our intercepts suggest the components will move within 48 hours. "What about Keller?" Maya asked. "Can he report on the new location?" Holt's expression darkened. "Keller's gone dark. His last transmission was 6 hours ago, 2 words, cover blown. Lazarev knows who he is. He's either captured or on the run." The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. Keller was compromised because of their botched operation. If he was captured, Lazarev would torture him for information, then kill him. If he was running, he had no support, no extraction, no hope. "We have to get him out," Morrison said, his voice urgent. "We will," Holt replied. "But first we need to locate Lazarev's new position and secure those components. Otherwise, none of this matters." He turned to Maya. "I'm authorizing a direct action raid. Full Special Forces package, Delta operators, air support, everything we've got. They're en route now, ETA 6 hours." Relief flooded through Maya. Professionals were taking over. This was bigger than her now. But Holt wasn't finished. "I want you to lead the targeting package, Staff Sergeant. You're the only one who's seen the installation layout, who's observed Lazarev's security protocols. The Delta team commander will handle tactical execution, but I need your expertise for mission planning. Sir, I failed the reconnaissance mission. You saved a CIA asset, gathered critical intelligence, and brought your team home under fire. That's not failure. That's exactly what I needed you to do. Holt stepped closer. This isn't over, Maya. Those components are still out there. Keller is still in danger, and you're still the best person to help me stop this. Maya looked at Morrison, who nodded encouragingly despite his exhaustion. She thought of Okonkwo in the medical bay, wounded but alive. She thought of David, dead because she'd made the wrong choice. Maybe this time she could make the right one. What do you need from me, sir? Everything you know, every detail. We've got 6 hours before Delta arrives and 12 hours before we hit Lazarev's new location. Holt pulled up a detailed map of the region. We get one shot at this, one chance to end this threat and bring Keller home. I need you at your best. The aide brought coffee, thick, black military coffee that tasted like diesel but would keep them awake. Maya drank it gratefully, feeling the caffeine kick in. For the next 5 hours, she worked with Holt's intelligence team, reconstructing every detail of the installation. The tunnel dimensions, the guard positions, the sight lines and dead zones. Morrison contributed his observations, proving invaluable. At hour 4, new intelligence arrived. One of Lazarev's encrypted phones had pinged a cell tower 40 kilometers north, a different installation, deeper in the mountains, more fortified. That's where he is, Holt said. That's where the components are. Maya studied the satellite imagery of the new location. It was a fortress, concrete bunkers, interlocking fields of fire, minimal approach routes, a nightmare for any assault force. They'll be expecting us now, she said. After the first contact, they'll be on high alert. Then we don't give them time to prepare. Holt checked his watch. Delta's birds land in 90 minutes, mission brief in 2 hours, wheels up at 2200 hours. We hit them at dawn when they're tired, when they think they're safe. Maya's exhausted mind was already calculating angles, approaches, contingencies. This was what she'd trained for at Sentinel, the impossible missions, the high-stakes operations where failure meant catastrophic consequences. But this time she wouldn't be alone. Morrison spoke up. Sir, request permission to join the assault force. Denied, Corporal, Holt said firmly. You've done your part, get some rest. But sir, that's an order, Holt's voice softened. You did good out there, son, better than good, but this next part requires a different skill set. Morrison looked at Maya, disappointed but accepting. He's right, Maya told him. Go check on Okonkwo, tell her we're going to finish this. As Morrison left, Holt turned to Maya one final time. Last chance to back out, Staff Sergeant. What we're about to do is going to be ugly. It's going to be violent. And there's a very real chance we don't all come home. Maya thought about the village in the valley, 4,000 people who had no idea their lives hung in the balance. She thought about Keller, alone and hunted in hostile territory. She thought about David and the mission left unfinished. I'm in, sir, whatever it takes. Good, Holt extended his hand. Then let's go save the world. Delta Force operators arrived like ghosts, 12 men who moved with the quiet confidence of elite warriors. Their team leader, Major Ryan Cross, had more combat deployments than Maya had years in service. His handshake was firm, his eyes assessing. Heard you're the one who's been poking the bear, Cross said, studying the mission maps Maya had prepared. More like the bear noticed us, Maya replied. Cross smiled grimly, then let's put it down. The mission brief was clinical, precise. Cross's team would handle the main assault, breaching the compound's primary entrance with overwhelming force. Maya would lead a small element through the tunnel system she'd identified in the satellite imagery, providing intelligence and cutting off Lazarev's escape routes. You'll need experienced operators for the tunnel team, Cross said. I'll assign 2 of my best. "I want Corporal Morrison," Maya interrupted. Cross raised an eyebrow. "The kid from your observation team. No offense, Staff Sergeant, but this isn't a training mission. He's proven himself under fire. He knows the terrain, knows my operating style, and I trust him." Maya met Cross's gaze steadily. "I need someone who won't hesitate when it matters." General Holt, observing from the corner, nodded slowly. "Give her Morrison, and add Sergeant First Class Marcus Wade from Delta as your third. He's done tunnel clearing in Mosul." Cross didn't look happy, but he accepted. "Your call, General." 2 hours before insertion, Maya found Morrison in the armory, meticulously cleaning his rifle. He looked up, surprised. "You're coming with me," she said simply. Morrison's face transformed, exhaustion replaced by fierce determination. "Thank you, Staff Sergeant. I won't let you down." "I know you won't." They geared up in silence. Night vision, suppressed weapons, breaching charges, medical kits. Maya checked her rifle one final time, the familiar weight grounding her. Beside her, Sergeant Wade introduced himself with a nod. He was older, maybe 40, with the calm demeanor of someone who'd seen everything. "Heard your sentinel," Wade said quietly. "Was 2 years ago. Once sentinel, always sentinel." He tapped his own chest, where a similar subdued badge was barely visible beneath his tactical vest. "Task Force 121, Syria. We're family, whether you wear the uniform or not." The words hit Maya harder than expected. Family. She'd forgotten what that felt like. At 2200 hours, they boarded the helicopters. Cross's team in 2 Black Hawks, Maya's element in a smaller stealth bird. As they lifted off, Maya's radio crackled with an unexpected transmission. "Firefly to any friendly element, do you copy?" Maya's heart jumped. Firefly was Keller's call sign. "Firefly, this is Sentinel-1. We read you. What's your status?" Keller's voice was strained, breathless. "Compromised but mobile. I'm in the tunnel system beneath the northern compound. Lazarev knows who I am. He's got me tagged as hostile." "Can you reach an extraction point?" "Negative, they're hunting me. But listen, the components are in the main bunker, 3rd sublevel, heavy security. Lazarev's moving them at dawn, just 4 hours from now. You need to hit them before sunrise." Maya exchanged glances with Wade. "Copy that. We're inbound to your location now. Can you provide intel on the tunnel layout?" "Sending you data packet now." A pause, then Keller's voice dropped. "Sentinel-1, there's something else. Lazarev has the place rigged. If he thinks he's losing, he'll collapse the entire tunnel system, bury the components and everyone in them." "Understood, stay hidden. We're coming for you." The transmission ended. Wade whistled low. This just got a whole lot more complicated. Maya studied the data packet Keller had sent. A rough map of the tunnel network, guard positions, the bunker location. And there, marked in red, the demolition charges Lazarev had placed throughout the structure. "We go in quiet," she said. "Fast and silent until we locate Keller and secure the components. Then we get out before Lazarev can blow the mountain." The helicopter descended toward their insertion point, a ravine 2 kilometers from the compound. They fast-roped down into darkness, then began their approach on foot. The tunnel entrance was exactly where Keller's map indicated, a small service access hidden behind overgrown vegetation. Wade picked the lock in 30 seconds, and they slipped inside. The darkness swallowed them whole. Maya activated her night vision, the tunnel materializing in shades of green. Narrow, claustrophobic, water dripping from the ceiling, the smell of damp earth and decay. And suddenly, she was back in Damascus. The tunnel where David died, the walls pressing in, the ambush they'd missed, his blood on her hands. Her breath came shorter, faster. The tunnel seemed to shrink around her. "Staff Sergeant," Morrison's whisper cut through the rising panic. Maya forced herself to breathe, controlled, measured. David was gone, but she was here. These soldiers were counting on her. "I'm good," she managed. "Let's move." They advanced deeper into the mountain, weapons ready, every sense on high alert. The tunnel branched multiple times, but Keller's map guided them true. Wade held up a fist stop signal, voices ahead. Russian, 2 guards, maybe 3. Maya moved forward, her suppressed sidearm drawn. Around the corner she saw them, 2 men, smoking cigarettes, AK-47 slung casually over their shoulders. They'd never see tomorrow. She signaled Wade, left target, she'd take right. 3 suppressed shots, both guards dropped without a sound. Clear, Maya breathed. They stepped over the bodies and continued deeper. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber, and there, huddled behind a stack of old supply crates, was Ryan Keller. He looked up as they approached, relief flooding his battered face. "About damn time." "Can you walk?" Maya asked. "I can run if I have to." Keller stood, wincing. "But we've got a problem. Lazarev knows you're coming. He's got the main bunker locked down tight, and he's moved the demolition trigger to his personal quarters." Maya processed this. "So we can't just grab the components and run." "Not without risking him collapsing the whole mountain on our heads." Keller's eyes were hard. "You want those components, you need to take out Lazarev first." Morrison spoke up. "What about the Delta team hitting the main entrance?" "Diversion," Maya realized. "They'll draw Lazarev's attention while we go for him directly." Wade nodded approvingly. "Surgical strike, I like it." Maya checked her watch. 2 hours until dawn. 2 hours until Lazarev moved the components. 2 hours to end this. She keyed her radio. "Viper 6, this is Sentinel 1. We've recovered Firefly. Recommend main assault commences in 10 minutes. We're going after Lazarev directly." General Holt's response was immediate. "Copy that, Sentinel 1. Cross is moving into position now. You have your window, make it count." Maya looked at her small team, Wade, the Sentinel veteran. Morrison, the young warrior proving himself. Keller, wounded but determined. "This is it," she said quietly. "We end this now together." They moved toward Lazarev's quarters, toward the final confrontation, toward redemption or death. The mountain held its breath. And Maya Reeves walked into the darkness, ready to face her demons one last time. The explosion echoed through the mountain as Delta Force breached the main entrance. Chaos erupted above them, gunfire, shouting, the thunder of flashbangs. Cross's team was executing their assault perfectly, drawing every guard toward the front of the compound. Maya's element moved like shadows through the lower tunnels. Wade took point, his suppressed rifle coughing twice as they encountered scattered resistance. Keller, despite his injuries, guided them through the maze with certainty. "Lazarev's quarters are just ahead," Keller whispered. 2 guards outside, probably more inside." Maya signaled for Wade and Morrison to flank. On her mark, they moved as one unit, 3 synchronized shots, 2 guards down before they could raise the alarm. The door was reinforced steel. Wade placed a shaped charge while Maya covered the corridor. The explosion was controlled, precise, blowing the lock without collapsing the tunnel. They flowed inside. The room was Spartan, a desk, communications equipment, and Lazarev standing at a window overlooking his crumbling empire. He turned slowly, unsurprised, a detonator held loosely in his right hand. "So the Americans send their best," he said in accented English. His finger rested on the trigger. "One press and we all die. The mountain falls. The components are buried forever." "Along with you," Maya replied, her rifle steady on his chest. Lazarev smiled coldly. "A worthy sacrifice, better buried than in American hands." "You don't want to die," Wade said. "Nobody does." "You're wrong, Sergeant. I've been dead for years, ever since your country destroyed mine, turned us into beggars and criminals." His eyes burned with fanatic intensity. "This is merely choosing how my story ends." Maya's mind raced. If he triggered the explosives, the entire assault force could be buried. Cross and his team, Keller, Morrison, everyone. Above them, the firefight intensified. They were running out of time. "Let me make you an offer," Maya said, lowering her rifle slightly. "You drop the detonator, walk out of here alive, stand trial, tell your story to the world." Lazarev laughed bitterly. "American courts, American justice, no thank you." His finger tightened on the trigger. Morrison fired. The shot took Lazarev in the shoulder, not a kill shot, but enough. The detonator flew from his hand, skittering across the floor. Wade dove for it, securing it as Lazarev screamed in pain and rage. Maya was on him in seconds, zip-tying his hands while Morrison covered them. Keller grabbed the detonator, carefully disarming it with trembling hands. "Components are in the sublevel bunker," Keller gasped. "We need to secure them now." They dragged Lazarev into the corridor just as Cross's voice crackled over the radio. "All stations, compound is secure. Resistance neutralized. Status of package." "Package located," Maya replied. "Moving to secure now." The sublevel bunker was exactly where Keller had indicated, a reinforced vault containing 3 metal cases. Wade popped the locks, revealing the nuclear components nested in protective foam. "That's it," Keller confirmed. "That's what we've been chasing." Maya stared at the components, small, innocuous-looking pieces of metal and circuitry that could have killed hundreds of thousands. All of this, the missions, the deaths, David's sacrifice for these. "Sentinel-1, this is Viper 6, General Holt's voice cut through. "Confirm package secured." "Confirmed, sir. Package is secure. All hostiles neutralized. Firefly recovered safely." "Outstanding work, Staff Sergeant. Extraction inbound. Get your people out of there." They emerged from the tunnels as dawn broke over the mountains, the first rays of sunlight painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The Delta team had Lazarev's surviving men in zip ties, kneeling in rows. Cross nodded approvingly as Maya's element appeared. "Heard you got the package. Nice work." Morrison was grinning despite his exhaustion, the adrenaline still coursing through him. Wade clapped him on the shoulder. "Kid's got talent, Staff Sergeant. You should keep him." The helicopters arrived, and they loaded the components under heavy guard. Lazarev was placed on a separate bird, still defiant, still dangerous even in defeat. As they lifted off, Maya watched the compound disappear below, the place where she'd finally found redemption, where she'd proven to herself that she could still complete the mission without losing herself. General Holt met them on the landing pad at Forward Operating Base Vigilant. As the dust settled, he approached Maya with an expression that was almost proud. "I'm putting you in for a commendation," he said, "and I'm offering you something else. A return to Task Force Sentinel. We need operators like you. The real missions, the critical ones, that's where you belong." 2 years ago, Maya would have jumped at the offer. The chance to return to the shadows, to the elite world of special operations. But now, she looked past Holt to where Morrison was helping Keller toward the medical facility. She thought of Okonkwo, recovering from her wounds. She thought of the soldiers in Bravo Company who looked to her for guidance. "Thank you, sir, but my answer is no." Holt raised an eyebrow. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." Maya touched the badge on her sleeve, the symbol that had defined her for so long. "This badge will always be part of who I am, but it doesn't have to define where I'm going. These soldiers, Morrison, Okonkwo, the others, they need someone to teach them what I've learned. Not just the shooting, but the judgment, the restraint, knowing when to pull the trigger and when to hold fire." Holt studied her for a long moment, then smiled. "David Chen would be proud of you." The words hit Maya like a physical blow, but this time they didn't hurt. They healed. "I hope so, sir." 3 weeks later, Maya stood in front of Bravo Company for a training session on advanced marksmanship. Morrison and Okonkwo, who'd recovered remarkably well, assisted her. As she demonstrated proper breathing techniques, she noticed the new recruits watching her with a mixture of awe and respect. The badge on her sleeve caught the afternoon sunlight. Captain Brooks approached during a break. Heard you turned down a promotion and a slot with the special mission units. I did. Any regrets? Maya looked at her soldiers, young, eager, full of potential. Morrison was helping a struggling private with his rifle stance. Okonkwo was explaining radio protocols to a group gathered around her. Not even one, sir. That night, alone in her quarters, Maya opened her footlocker and pulled out a photograph. Her and David in Afghanistan, both grinning despite the heat and exhaustion. For 2 years, she'd kept it buried, unable to look at it without feeling crushing guilt. Now, she placed it on her desk where she could see it every day. We did it, she whispered to the photograph. Mission complete, and I brought them all home. Outside her window, the base settled into evening routine. Soldiers laughed, equipment rattled, life continued. Maya Reeves, former Sentinel operator, current staff sergeant in the United States Army, smiled. The badge on her sleeve would always mark where she'd been. But her soldiers would define where she was going. And that was enough. The end.